Hello, I'm Dr. Janice George, and I'm so delighted that you decided to spend your time with us today at Leadership Passport as we talk about leading with resilience and clarity amid chaos. So, what were you doing 5 years ago? When you think about March 2020, what were you doing? We were all amid chaos and uncertainty as we were in a pandemic. As you will recall, we were social distancing, we were isolating, we were buying masks, Clorox wipes, alcohol wipes. Our life changed. Our life changed, but we survived. We survived. And just as we survived that chaos and uncertainty 5 years ago, and any other kind of chaotic situation we've been in since then, we will survive any chaos that we're going through today. We will survive and we will thrive. And so when we look back, we can think about some things that we are grateful for. So for me, I'm thankful for my family and my friends. Yes, we lost a few people along the way, but I'm still thankful. I'm thankful that I'm here. I'm thankful for my family and my friends. As I mentioned, I am thankful for technology that we had that helped us navigate the situation. We were able to work from home. We ordered groceries. We even used Zoom to connect with our family and friends. Normally we would use Zoom for work, but we innovated and used Zoom to relate to our family and friends as well. So there are other things that we can be grateful for, but those are just a few highlights that I take away from that experience of the pandemic. And so before we get into the presentation today, I want to introduce you to Leadership Passport. So at Leadership Passport, we offer a solution to the leadership demise that we are experiencing throughout the world. And so our goal is to create a standard of leadership excellence that people respect, trust, admire, follow, and emulate. And what an opportunity when someone looks at your leadership and they want to emulate you. That is the best compliment we can all have. And so our goal is to change the trajectory of the leadership that we're seeing in our global experience today. And so when we look at leadership, leadership is not about title, it's not about position, it's not about status. It's how we influence others towards a positive change. And so whatever the chaos or uncertainty we're dealing with today, we all have the opportunity to influence change. And even when we think about influence, those little kids that you may teach or those kids, the grandkids you may have at your home, they have an opportunity to influence you as well. I can remember some years ago when I lived in Baltimore, my little niece came to visit, and so we were at the Inner Harbor, and so I took her into this little store, and there was this ruler-like thing that she wanted, and it may have cost $1. So I was very happy to purchase that for her. So anyway, I purchased this little ruler, and when we got outside, she slapped her wrist and it curled around her wrist. And I was like, wow. So it was called a slap bracelet. And so at that moment, my sister and I went back into the store and then we got one too, just with a 2 or 3 year old influencing us to buy a slap bracelet. And so we all are about influence. And so we have to be careful with what we allow to influence us and who we allow to influence us. And most importantly, also, how are we influencing others and how are we influencing change, positive change? And so also at Leadership Passport, our goal is to keep it real. And in this case, I added an O to real because I want real to stand for research, experience, observations, application, and we can link people with results. Now, I'm not going to spend any time talking about me. You can actually go to LinkedIn or you can go to my website, Leadership Passport, and you can learn everything that you want to know about me and all of my experience. But today I come to you as someone who's concerned. I'm concerned about all the things that's happening around us. And with that concern, just a few weeks ago, I had this idea that I needed to do something to encourage other leaders. And so in a matter of weeks, I put this together. Some friends were holding me accountable to do it. And so today I come to you as a person who has survived and thrived through chaos, whether it be through work, through like personal health challenge, relationships, indirectly, being concerned about others. But I also come as a leader who works really hard to strategize to minimize the risk of chaos. And so from that lens, I speak to you today. And so in our conversation today, we will answer the question, and this is in your response when you signed up. I asked, what would you want to gain from this webinar? And so then I took all of your responses and I put it in Chat GPT. And so it came out with this question. How can leaders remain effective, calm, and strategic in chaotic and uncertain environments? And so we will answer that question today. And so we want to respond with clarity from within. And we also have resiliency strategies that we will talk about. And then I will end talking about a leadership program that I offer. Okay, clarity. We all want clarity. We want to have that clear thinking so that we can make informed decisions and be able to be productive as we go through life. And so as we're looking to seek clarity, sometimes we need to pause and we just need to reflect and think about what's going on. And also from our past experience, what have we learned that's going to help us in the situation that we're in today? And sometimes I find even just writing things down, there's something that it distresses me by writing things down. And then I can prioritize those things that I need to work on. And we're going to talk about that some more in a few minutes. In order for us to seek clarity, it also requires us to take a look in the mirror. We need to understand who we are. What are our values? What is our purpose? What is our mission? And as we answer these hard questions, then that will also help to shape us and inform us as we're making various decisions. And so at the end of the day, our character matters. And character is our ability to navigate life, even when others may not see what's going on around us. We are able to navigate life because of the person within. When I was in Girl Scouts or 4-H, I guess maybe third or fourth grade, I learned this phrase, does my private I equal my public me? And so we want to be authentic in all that we're doing and that our character matters. Our character will shape our response to the chaos of life. And also we want to be committed to doing the right thing. I love this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King when he says, the time is always right to do what is right. And so when we operate from the lens of knowing who we are and what we need to do the right thing, that can help to determine what those decisions are when we have to make some tough decisions in a matter of a few minutes or an hour or even in a day. In a short time span, we're able to do that. And so now we're going to move to resilience. And with resilience, we're able to adapt to the adversity and the different challenges that are in our lives. And there are 4 types of resilience. There's physical resilience, there's mental resilience, there's emotional resilience, and there's also social resilience. And so with physical resilience, we need to be able to bounce back through all of the challenges that we're facing. And so when you think about when you're on the airplane and they're giving you instruction, they will tell you that if there's an incident where we have to use our oxygen mask, they tell us to put ours on first before we help someone else. And so in our physical resilience, we need to take care of our bodies so that we can bounce back and be resilient, because our bodies are designed to heal itself. So we want to be resilient from a physical perspective. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this area, but you know, and I know those things that we need to work on. And so I want to invite you that as we start a new month, perhaps you can decide on something that you're going to do, whether it be you're going to drink more water, you're going to exercise, you're going to get more rest, you're going to get more sleep. And rest is so important. You know, we need anywhere from 7 to 8 hours a day. And if we don't get proper rest each day, we cannot make up that rest in the days and weeks to come. We need the rest for today. And I was attending a brain health webinar a few weeks ago, and they were also talking about the importance of rest to mitigate the risk of like dementia or Alzheimer's and illness such as that. And so rest is so important. It is so important. Even for our skin, rest is so important. So I want to encourage you to choose to do something different as we start a new month to maintain physical resilience. Now, with emotional resilience, you know, we have to look at how we manage our emotions and manage our feelings and balance everything with our logical abilities, because we need to be able to manage these things in order that we can influence the right outcomes and be able to help others, whether it be our team, family members, or friends, as we're navigating the challenges of life. And so, again, balancing that cognitive behavior with our emotions so that we can make those right decisions and move forward. And so I'm going to spend most of my time with the mental resilience and the social resilience. And so with the mental resilience, you know, we want to be able to navigate our challenges so that we can, you know, be able to solve problems and be adaptable and creative as we are determining the right solutions for that particular situation. And so one of the tools that I like is what I call the 5 whys. Now, 5 is an arbitrary number. For some situations, it may be less than 5, but in some cases, it may require more than 5. But in any given situation, we want to get to the root cause. We want to solve the root problem. And so, for an example, if someone comes to you and they say that I'm bleeding, then the question is why? Why are you bleeding? And as you keep asking the question, you find out that there's some broken glass on the floor. And later you find out that that broken glass is on the floor because someone didn't put the glass properly up in the cupboard. And so that's the solution. Now, yes, we're going to tend to the wound. We're going to clean it. We're going to put a bandage on it. But we also got to solve that root problem and getting to the bottom of why that glass is not in that cabinet properly. And that's the problem that we're solving. Now, also from a mental resilience perspective, we want to stick with the facts. We want to base our decisions, our actions, and our communications on the facts. When we do this, we can establish some stability with the fact-based and timely decisions, because it's very important for your team that they're going to have the right information. They're going to need right communication with you, but you also need correct information from them. And so when we base our decisions and our actions on the facts, then we can also determine the right problem and the right solution for that problem. And also in communication, we want to make sure we're using the effective tools, the right tools. There are times when, yes, an instant message or a text message may work, but there are times when we need to pick up the phone, make the phone call, or have a Zoom so that we can see people face to face, or even have that in person if the opportunity presents itself. Also, with mental resilience, we want to focus on what we can control. Now, I love this concept of separating our concerns from responsibilities. We're concerned about a lot of things. We're distracted by a lot of things. But there comes a point where we've got to focus on our responsibility. And this concept really helped me a lot, I want to say in November, when we were dealing with my mom's health. And so that Friday night, as I was talking to my mom, I realized she needs to get to the doctor. And so my brother and sister-in-law, they took her to the doctor. And so I was trying to determine, do I pack up and go home now? Or do I wait for more information to determine when I actually go home? And so, yes, I'm concerned about my mom, but my responsibility for that weekend, I needed to continue with that until I had more information to make an informed decision. And so my brother and sister-in-law, they saw after my mom. And then a few days later, my husband and I, we went down for her care. And then a few days after that, my sister came down. So we had this tag team. We strategized on how we were going to take care of our mom for that period of time in our lives. And so chaos can come in different forms. And so we have to separate what are the concerns and what are the responsibilities for that moment. We also want to strategize. And I mentioned that just a second ago, but we want to strategize how we use our time, the resources, and our priorities in order to determine the best solution for that particular time. And so I can remember some years ago when our organization was going through reorgs and downsizing. Every 6 months for about 6 or 7 years, there were layoffs and restructuring. And so I remember this time when we were in the process of launching a new product. And so my boss, she pulled our team together and we strategized on a weekly basis on what we were going to do in order that we met our deliverables. Yes, we had strategic plans. We had 3-year strategic plans. We had performance agreements for the year. We had all of that. But when these situations happened, then we had to stop and reprioritize how we were spending our time and what we were doing in order to meet those objectives. Now, as we're strategizing, we need to be engaged. We need to be engaged with our teams. We need to be engaged with our family and friends. We need to know individually and collectively what's going on. We also need to be engaged with what's going on within the environment, whether it be our family, whether it be our work environment, or the greater environment like our nation or what's going on in the world. We also need to apply strategic foresight. And one particular tool that I like using is scenario planning. So with scenario planning, you look at all the possible opportunities for that particular situation, and then you strategize accordingly to help you prepare if such an event occurs. So for instance, right now, we know that there are a lot of people have been laid off. People are having to make decisions for their lives, but also for the lives of others. So if this is a situation where you currently have your job, then how do you strategize if you were to lose your job? So dusting off the resume, starting to apply for jobs, to be prepared for that. There may be some other things if somebody says that you're going to have to decrease your team by 50%. So what are the projects that must get done? Start to strategize now. And so then if a situation occurs, then you will be able to act accordingly. You're not having to think quickly, but you're prepared for whatever challenge may come your way. There's also mental resilience through continuous learning. And that's very key, to always be learning. And we can be creative with learning. Learning doesn't always mean that we have to, be in the classroom. The fact that you're attending this webinar, that's part of continuous learning. Reading articles, like you could have your team to everybody be responsible for reading some articles or reading a book and then telling the rest of the team about it. But continuous learning helps us to be resilient. And I like creating what I call the SWOT analysis. A lot of times when we think of SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, we think of it as it relates to an organization. But we can also apply that technique to ourselves. What are my strengths? Those are the things that I'm going to sell on my resume. But I can also look at my weaknesses and determine which of those weaknesses do I need to work on now to prepare myself for the future. For instance, AI, artificial intelligence. A lot of us can be fearful of artificial intelligence, but that is something that we all need to take time to learn and to prepare ourselves for the future. And when we practice continuous learning, that helps us to be adaptable and flexible when chaos happens or when the need arises. And so adaptable, that allows us to be proactive with what's going on. And flexibility is more or less a reactive measure when we're having to, change schedules or, instead of having this meeting today, we have to move it to another day. We're being flexible to bounce with the need of the business or the need for that particular moment in time. And as we are being adaptable and flexible, we also have to understand that our team or the people that we're working with, they need that flexibility and that space to move in the way that's appropriate for them. And so as leaders, we walk alongside them with helping them to be adaptable and flexible. And we do it in a way where we're not rigid because they need space. They need to be able to breathe so that they can adjust to what's going on around them as well, because they're going to do it a little bit differently than us. Now with social resilience. With social resilience, it's all about building community. We want to build community among our family, our friends, our colleagues. And I love this quote, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. And so we need to have that support system so that when things happen, we're able to support each other to move forward. It could be a project that you're working on. You need help from your colleagues. There could be various things that's going on in the family that you need help from others. And so building that resilience within community is so important. And we want to build that resilience on respect and trust. We want to treat everyone with respect, and we also want to be trustworthy so they can count on us and knowing that we are dependable and that we also have their back. We have their best interest at heart. And so it doesn't matter who the people are. I love this quote from Albert Einstein where he says that he will speak to the janitor just as well as he would speak to the president of the university. And so we want to treat everyone, regardless of status, regardless of any diversity. We want to respect and appreciate all people. And from a social resilience perspective, we also want to live by the platinum rule. A lot of times we hear about the golden rule. We want to do unto others as we would have them do unto us. But with the platinum rule, we take time to understand what they need from us. We understand how they want to be treated. And it may be different than the way I want to be treated. And so that requires some empathy and some compassion and some active listening. And with active listening, when I'm talking to you or I'm listening to you, I'm not trying to figure out what I'm going to say next. I'm truly listening to you and digesting what you're saying so that together we can have an engaging conversation and come up with some solutions. And also with compassion, we also need to have self-compassion. Self-compassion that we don't beat up ourselves when we may have made a mistake or We wish we had done something differently in the past that would have helped us with the situation that we're in right now. So we want to apply that empathy and compassion to everyone, to include ourselves. We also want to be authentic in our words and actions. We need to make sure that our words and actions are aligned. And this helps us even with our communication, but it also, is on one of the earlier slides. Who are we? When we know who we are, then that's going to help us to be authentic as we're interacting with other people and making those decisions aligned with our character, aligned with who we are, the person that we see in the mirror. And so as I close, I want to invite you to just kind of reminisce with me. The movie, The Lion King, is one of my favorite movies. I saw it in the theater, different plays. And what I liked most about it was when Simba is talking to Mufasa's ghost, his father, and his father tells him, remember who you are. Remember who you are. And I think today as leaders, we have to remember who we are. When we look in the mirror, we have to remember who we are. If there are some character flaws we need to work on, sure, we can work on those. But we need to remember who we are and remember that we have the solution to the problems that are around us. And so identify what those problems are and then look within ourselves to see how we can be part of the solution, how we can help others and encourage others with all that's going on around us today. And with that, we can be an instrument of peace. We can sow love. We can sow truth. We can sow hope, light, joy. We don't have to be focused on how someone will understand us, but seek to understand others. And this is critical for us today because we realize that, there's a lot of chaos. There's also a lot of division. And so how can we sow peace? We sow peace with truth. We sow peace with love. And so I want to invite you today to remember who you are. And I also want to share with you a leadership program that we offer at Leadership Passport. And this is all about elevating leadership to the standard that we talked about, a standard that people respect, trust, admire, and emulate. And so we focus on character, competence, and culture, some of the very things that we talked about in this webinar today. And so we want to be leaders who can change the world. And so if you're interested in exploring that opportunity, please feel free to schedule a strategy session. Even if you want to just talk about some of the things that I've shared with you today, let's have a strategy session to talk about that. And in any regard, no matter what, whether you decide to be part of this program or not, we can talk about a solution for whatever you're going through right now. So let's spend 30 minutes and chat and determine a leadership strategy that's going to work effectively for you. And I promised that we would end in 30 minutes, and I have 2 minutes to spare. So let me see if there's anything in the chat that I need to respond to. Okay. So I'm not seeing any questions or anything. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. And again, I invite you to remember who you are. Remember that you can be resilient, you can have clarity, and you can navigate and thrive throughout the chaos. We survived 5 years ago. We will survive any situation that comes our way. We have the ability to do that. And so I just invite you to remember who you are. Thanks again for joining.